Novak Djokovic's weakness is his backhand once points get started. If you don't believe me, watch this video. I'm about to show you a statistical breakdown of the Australian Open this past year, match by match, to show you exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm also going to relate it directly to your game so you can take the lessons that you learned from Novak and apply them so you can play smarter points, win more matches. So if you're a huge fan of Novak Djokovic and you don't want to play better tennis, then click away from this video right now. You're not going to like anything I have to say. On the other hand, if you love the game and you want to get better, then you're in exactly the right place. So we recently published a video where I broke down a play, kind of a 1-2 punch that Roger Federer was using in this same tournament against Novak in the semifinals. And I referred to Novak's backhand side as his weak side. I was talking about Roger stretching Novak out on his forehand side to expose his backhand side. And I got all kinds of comments like this one below that video saying, what are you talking about? Backhand is Novak's weakness. And by the way, if you've been enjoying these statistical breakdowns, these strategy analysis lessons on the board, do me a favor and click like. It really helps me a lot, helps the video a lot, helps these videos get seen by more players. Thank you so much for everybody that's been clicking like. So here's some more of those comments. A lot of Novak fans got super triggered because a lot of people consider Novak as having like the best backhand in the world. And he does. Totally on the same page with you. His backhand's incredible. Definitely one of the best, possibly ever. So these are people being really upset about me saying that backhand is his weakness once the point gets started. Then here's Golden Calf. Interesting. I always thought Djokovic had a stronger backhand than forehand. Indeed, he is rated as having one of the best backhands in the history of the game. But is it just a case of him having a less weak backhand than everybody else? This is exactly the way that we're going to see how things kind of shake out. But let's go match by match here. This is the 2020 Australian Open. First round. Every time I see this name, I think of Matt Bradshaw. Shout out to Matt over at Coffee Break Tennis. This was a really tough first round opening match. Tiebreaker in the first, lost the third set. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to circle in green the forehand ground stroke in each of these statistical breakdowns. And what this is, Australian Open, go to Australian Open's website for these stats. They're incredible. They do an amazing job providing these stats for us fans and coaches to break down and analyze. Basically, once the rally gets started, this is each of the different types of shots that Novak and Struff could be hitting. And what we're doing here is looking at, in the green, you see 15 and 13. 15 is winners. 13 is forced errors. That means a shot that Novak hit that was so good that he won the point. Struff got to the ball but couldn't get it back. And in red, unforced errors. That means just made a mistake for no good reason. And so this number, here's the differential. So he took 28 points with his forehand ground stroke and he lost 17 for a differential of plus 11, which is incredible over the course of the match. And again, this is rally exchanges back and forth. Down here at the bottom, we have backhand ground stroke with a -5. And so in this match, I want you to answer at home. You can answer down in the comments. For this match, was Novak's backhand an asset? Was it a liability? Or was it neutral? Was it kind of somewhere in between? Well, once the point got started, obviously his backhand was more of a liability than his forehand. In fact, they couldn't be further apart during this particular match. All right, moving forwards. Round number 2. Pretty much a walkover match here. Not very close at all. Second set, competitive, but first set and third set, not really. Let's do green circle here for forehand ground stroke, again, up at the top with a differential of +7. Came out ahead by 7 points. And where's the backhand ground stroke? It took me way too long to find it. Backhand ground stroke was right behind it with a differential of +2. So in this particular match, where Novak's really not being challenged very much, the two shots are right next to each other. His forehand still won him quite a few more points, but his backhand was an asset for sure in this match. It was definitely a big strength for him in that match, but not as strong as his forehand. All right, round 3. This was kind of a weird match, and I had to bring in some additional stats to really kind of make sense of it, because you see down here both players Forehand ground stroke, backhand ground stroke were both in the negative. And I'll go ahead and do the forehand ground stroke in green again, -1. So we have 7 winners and 8 unforced errors for Novak. And then backhand ground stroke, once the point got started, was the biggest liability for him at -4. And you see his opponent too, backhand ground stroke, forehand ground stroke. And so we actually don't see a whole lot of rallies here. Like you look at the numbers and it's just kind of empty. So I looked at the serving stats, and you look at Novak's ability here to win his service points. He played 62 service points, and he won 54 of them. Just huge percentage of his service points. So his serve was basically never in jeopardy. Meanwhile, you look at Novak's opponent, you look at return points won for the entire match. This guy only won 6 points off of Novak's serve. So Novak's serve here just absolutely dominated, and there's just frankly not a lot of rallies, not a lot of exchanges. So there's just not a whole lot of numbers here. But interesting to see. It would have been interesting to watch this match. I haven't seen the match, but I'm guessing there was some kind of quirky, weird stylistic matchup or something like that, because neither player looks super comfortable here. For the whole match, we have -4 once the rally gets started for his opponent, and just +1 for Novak. So it's kind of a weird match. Then 4th round against Schwartzman. Draw a green circle around forehand ground stroke with +10. Big asset for that match, very positive. And then we have backhand ground stroke at -2 for the match. Much closer match. 1 break of serve in all 3 sets, it looks like, 6-4, 6-4, 6-3. So much more competitive match. Backhand and forehand, again, very separated. Then we have the quarterfinals against Raonic, huge server, up at the top. Once the rally got started, +11 on the forehand ground stroke. And backhand ground stroke, he broke even. He had 8 unforced errors, 6 forced errors, and just 2 winners on the match on his backhand side. So this match, definitely competitive. Not like the closest match ever, but Raonic gave him a fight. And his backhand could kind of go either way, whereas his forehand, again, was his biggest asset in this round. Semifinals, this is the match we were looking at between Federer and Djokovic, which many of you pointed out in the comments, which I appreciate. You're correct. I totally forgot about the fact that Roger was injured. His back was out in that match, and so he was kind of struggling. Forehand ground stroke for Novak was at +8 for the match differential, and backhand ground stroke was right up there along with it, so at a +4. So definitely an asset in that match. Not as big of an asset as his forehand, but it was definitely a strength and definitely was a positive for him in that match. And then finally, in the finals against Team, a match that we've also broken down in these sessions, forehand ground stroke at +12, and just a lot of action here. You see 32 winning shots with the forehand and 21 unforced errors. So just he's dictating a lot with his forehand in this match. And then down at the bottom, whoops, forgot to draw it in red. Backhand ground stroke was the biggest liability at -6. So moving through these matches, you can see a pattern here. Sometimes his forehand and backhand are right next to each other. Other times, they're very separate. And the pattern that hopefully you've noticed here, is kind of the conclusion, is first of all, his backhand was never a bigger asset than his forehand. His forehand was always the stronger shot. It always did more damage. It always gave him more points in his favor than his backhand. Sometimes his backhand was a strength. Other times, it was his biggest liability once the exchange got going and he was rallying back and forth. So what does this mean? It's a relative, yes, it's an incredible backhand. And my backhand is incredible compared to a total beginner player. My backhand compared to Novak is absolute garbage, and he would just absolutely destroy me, like without even breaking a sweat. And it's the same thing with Novak. When he plays a wild card in the second round, his backhand is a strength. When he plays Team in the finals, his backhand becomes a liability. And in both of those cases, his forehand was always stronger. It was the stronger strength of the two. And so what we're going to do now is talk about what does this mean for you? What is the application for us mere mortals? And we're about to go to some point play from amateur player and YouTube channel Hex Vision. Make sure to give a big thumbs up for Hex Vision for uploading this video and also sharing it with me and saying, here you go, Ian, go ahead and analyze this point play. Let's dive right into it. So this is match play footage between a 4-0 player on this side and a 3-5 rated player on this side. Let's go ahead and roll through this point to kind of get a feel for what's going on. And then we're going to break it down. And this really kind of falls into line perfectly with what we've been talking about on this channel for the last several videos. The concepts of geometry, what's a safe shot, what's a risky shot, what directions make you more likely to make a mistake, and which ones keep you in the point longer and make it more likely that you're actually going to win the point. So once the serve goes in play, and good serve, and good job just blocking the return back, we've got a forehand on the other side, and this very first shot, he takes down the line. And so remember, if you remember the analysis videos we've been watching, we've got two main options. He could go down the line, which is higher risk, but it goes to this player's backhand, and so there's kind of a balancing act there. And you see he's slightly out of position, and so he's thinking about taking that direction. Even though it's higher risk, there's higher reward for him on this shot. Or he could just play the percentage shot, which is back cross court. There's more room, the net's lower, but it goes back to this person's, that's not the right tool, goes back to this person's strength. So that's kind of the balancing act, right? And on this first shot, he decides to go for the open court. I don't have a problem with this shot at all. He plays it high, he plays it pretty safe, and it puts this person on the run to his weaker side, the backhand. The backhand is the weaker side for like 99% of tennis players. And so if you're going to go to the backhand and take on higher risk, you want to do it like this by playing it relatively safe and not just trying to laser it over the top of the net. So what we have here is player on this side of the court, away from the center, hitting his weakness against an opponent who's in perfect balance and waiting for the next shot. So with the two kind of main options that this person has, either down the line, higher risk to this person's strength, or cross court, lower risk to this person's weakness, which shot do you think he should target? Obviously, there's a whole lot of reasons why he should be looking to hit whatever he possibly can anywhere over to this side of the court. But instead of doing that, he just kind of floats it to the middle, basically just feeding a forehand to his opponent. And so now we have weakness being hit right to the middle with a huge open court, a high percentage shot using the strength of this player. Now, I'm not, ragging on this person. Like, I think he was probably trying to hit cross court, but it's a perfect example of a shot selection that totally backfires and puts this person in a terrible position behind the point. And he ends up losing the point because this person absolutely hits to the open court, and now he's in a higher pressure shot, more stretch than he was in the shot before, and this person is just staying nice and comfortable in the middle of the court. So we have a whole bunch of movement, stress, pressure on this side, and comfort over on the other side. That's what happens when you shoot a ball to the wrong spot and get behind in the point. Now let's trade sides, take a look at the 4.0 player. I'll go ahead and roll through the point first, and then we'll quickly break it down. This player's in total control here on this shot, and he makes the unforced error, but it's the decision that we're going to talk about. So I want you to go ahead and answer down in the comments. Do you think that this is a offensive position that he's in, a neutral position that he's in, or a defensive position that he's in? Well, I don't think he's on defense, but he's gotten pushed. Look at where he started. He's been pushed back by this return of serve. And so it's his strength. He's in the middle of the court. To me, this is a neutral ball. So look at the options that we have. We need to go through the decision-making process here, keeping in mind that we have a strong side over here by his opponent, a weak side over here by his opponent, and his position is pretty good, and he's comfortable, and he's just kind of hanging out and getting ready for the next shot. There's visually some additional space over here, and that's what this person is looking at. He's saying, oh, there's more space here than there is here. But unfortunately, it's going to his opponent's strength, and had he made this shot, his opponent is going to have an angle working away from his position right now, and he's hitting himself out of position by trying this shot. In other words, he's positioned on the same side of the court as he's trying to hit, and so that means a cross-court ball on the next shot pulls him away from the center of the court, and he's got to run across the whole length of the baseline. So he just makes an unforced error here, but I wanted to just point out the shot selection, that he's just trying to like smash a winner here. And as we talked about in the winners video, like Djokovic, that's just not the pattern or kind of strategy that you should be trying to utilize as an amateur player. It's not what I should be trying to utilize as a 4-5 or 5-0 player. Instead, you should be doing what happens in this next point. This point is really a big contrast to the one that we just saw before. We have a really similar setup to this point. This time, the player just plays a really calm, neutral shot to the weakness. So the setup is virtually identical. Floating ball to the middle of the court. In fact, this person, the 3-5 player, is actually in a better position. He's closer in. He's receiving his strength. He's in a balanced, comfortable position, and he's got that same kind of shot choice here of, okay, should I go more at an angle and hit to my opponent's weakness, or should I hit the ball inside in and hit it to his strength? And when you stop it like this and you slow it down, it's obvious. It's going to take the higher percentage shot. He's going to hit to his opponent's weakness, but I love how he does it just with kind of a casual rally ball shot and just says, here you go. Here's your weakness. Can you beat me with that weaker side? And in a nutshell, I mean, that's really kind of the point I want to get across here. Really good tennis for 99.9% of us, myself included, and all of you watching, is all about knowing the patterns, knowing the percentages, knowing the geometry, and just choosing intelligent patterns, choosing intelligent shots. And the vast majority of the time, the backhand is the weaker side. It is for Novak. It is for virtually every other professional player. If you can find a player who consistently has a better ratio of backhand shots once the rally gets started to forehand shots, I'd love to know who it is. In fact, go ahead and tell me down in the comments. Who do you think that might be? A whole lot of people on the internet seem to think that Novak's backhand is stronger than his forehand, but it's not. And so you need to take those things into consideration. And the fact that so many people thought that it was should make a lot of you stop and kind of pause and reflect. What am I missing? What am I missing when I watch professional tennis? And what am I missing when I play tennis? Because there's a lot of patterns out there that can help you win matches that are being ignored by your peers. So this has been helpful. Do me a favor and click like. It helps me, it helps the channel, it helps the video. Thank you to all of you who've been doing that and helping the channel grow and giving us ideas to continue to produce helpful content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.